Welcome into another episode of Tailgate Talk SEC. I am Will Thomas, and we are continuing down the final stretch of our season prediction and schedule breakdown series. And today we have Shane Beamer's South Carolina Gamecocks. Now, really the impression everyone has of Carolina this year is what they did last season, which was even though you had Lenore Sellers, you had Nick Harbor, you had Dylan Stewart, they only won 4 games. And that's fine because that is the most recent thing you have. It's an important data point to look at when you're evaluating this team going into this fall. But 2 years ago, they won 9 games and they had an argument to make the playoff. So we know that that core of those guys and that Shane Beamer, like it's in them. But the question is, was that the year they had? Was that their chance? And now going into the future, like have they already hit their ceiling and do you kind of know what you have with them? So let's go through their schedule. I do believe that the roster overall this year is better than it was last year, but it's a really challenging schedule. So as I go through the games, you guys will see I'm pretty excited about Carolina as a team, but in terms of the schedule, it's hard to find, an excessive amount of wins. But let's just go through it right now. So in week 1, they host Kent State at home. It'll be a nice, easy season opener. You get it actually on your home field this time instead of playing in a neutral field like last year. So they'll beat Kent State at home. And in week 2, similar story. You get Towson at home, another non-power home game to really just kind of get things going, which I think is important because you have a ton of transfers on really both sides of the ball. You can get them comfortable, you can get them going. So I like Carolina to beat Towson at home too as well. Then in week 3, their SEC opener. They also get it at home. It's against Mississippi State. Now, my read on the Bulldogs all summer has been Arkansas of last season. And all that means is just that really, really good offense that can give anybody nightmares on defense. But their defense, State's is really questionable. You have Kelly Jones, some other guys in that secondary, Isaac Smith, Braylon Womack. What else is there? And this earlier in the year, I'm not sure you really get those answers. So Carolina's offense, I believe, at this point is going to just have State outmatched. And even though State should score some pretty good points on Carolina's defense, it won't be enough. Especially not in Williams-Brice. So I'll take Carolina over Mississippi State as well in week 3. So I've got the Gamecocks starting off 3-0, including a win in their SEC opener. In week 4, their very first road game of the season is a tough one. They go to Alabama. And I got the Crimson Tide beating Carolina here. I just think that if you look at Bama's overall roster profile, I mean, it's more talent than South Carolina is, going all the way through the depth chart. And Bama's strength defensively, they don't really have a glaring weakness, but their secondary is really, really good. And, Lenore Sellers, when he's off, he's making bad decisions, some inaccurate throws. Bama's secondary will be able to capitalize on that if that's still the Lenore Sellers that we have. And earlier in the year, first road start, I have a hard time going into this at least blindly saying, no, Sellers has it all cleaned up. He won't make any mistakes. So because of that, because, Bama's strength can really capitalize on Carolina's offensive weaknesses, I have Bama beating South Carolina at home. Now, 2 years ago, was it 2 years ago? I think it was 2 years ago. When Carolina went into Bama, they were outmatched in that game too, and they almost won. They almost pulled it out. So we know that these guys can go challenge the Crimson Tide in Tuscaloosa. So would I be shocked if it's close and competitive? Not really. But I would be surprised if Carolina is able to actually win that game and get over that hump. So give me Alabama over Carolina. And then in week 5, Carolina comes home when they play Kentucky in Columbia. I have a loss here to the Wildcats. Now, I've been getting grilled for thinking that Kentucky is going to be half decent this year. That's fine. Just stay on that side this fall. Why I have this being a loss is because you're coming, back from the road at Alabama. So you are physically beat up. I mean, you got hurt at Alabama. Everybody will. So you get to come home. You're in a home bounce back spot, which is good. But Kentucky is going to be pretty dangerous this year, at least offensively. With Will Stein, that system now in place, a bunch of good weapons. I think Kentucky's able to get Carolina here because you're still going to be early on in the season where you won't really be at a point where everyone around is like, guys, Kentucky can get you. I'm predicting that they can be. So I've got Carolina coming off a combination of, kind of Bama beating you twice. And also they go 2 games for the next week, so maybe a bit of a look ahead there with that trip to Florida. I have them losing to Kentucky in week 5 at home. And then week 6, when they go to Florida, I have a loss there as well. Going through the Gators schedule, I didn't really have them losing a game at home. And there are much harder home games for Florida than Carolina. So I got the Gators being able to take care of Carolina. I just think that Florida, they retain so many weapons offensively that I'm not sure if Carolina's defense can really, limit all of them. And Florida's defense, especially at home in the swamp, is going to be someone to reckon with. So I think Carolina, they'll be able to move the ball a decent bit against Florida's defense because of how much firepower there is on that offense. But consistency-wise, would you really need to go win a road game? I'm not sure they have it. So I have Carolina losing their 3rd straight game here at Florida to go into their bye week in week 7, 3-3. So at this point, you wish you had one of those wins in weeks 4, 5, and 6, but it's not the end of the world. Especially because in week 8, you get to host Tennessee coming out of your bye, big-time game at home, and I do have Carolina beating the Vols. We saw them beat them in Columbia a few years ago. And I think you kind of get a similar spot where Carolina kind of knows, like, look, if we want any chance at a decent postseason position, even if it's not the playoff, probably not at this point, but just a good bowl game, we kind of have to win out. Or at least only lose one more game. And going through looking at the rest of their schedule, Tennessee is not a game that you can really afford to lose if you want to close out with a really good record. So I have them beating Tennessee at home and really kind of we got to get done right now spot. So I trust them to get the Vols at home. Then week 9, Carolina goes to Oklahoma. Hitting the road in general in the SEC is challenging. Hitting the road to a Sooners defense of this caliber is really, really hard. So I have Oklahoma beating Carolina here, handing the Gamecocks their 4th loss, moving to 4-4. I just going on the road to the Sooners defense. I don't really think anybody can handle that. Oklahoma at home, they're going to be really hard to beat this year, really behind that defense. And I don't believe that Carolina is any degree of an anomaly there. So I have Oklahoma beating Carolina. Then in week 10, Carolina comes home. They get Texas A&M at home. This one could be a decent little upset pick maybe, and when we get to week 10, we'll obviously know a lot more information, so maybe that will be my pick. But for right now, I think that A&M, they'll be in the middle of a playoff push here, so they know they can't really afford to lose any game and take any game lightly. So I think the Aggies are going to be able to go to Columbia, really take care of a Carolina team that will be less talented than them. So I have Carolina losing another game here to Texas A&M to drop to 4-5. And then after A&M, they hit the road. They go to Arkansas. I had this being another loss for Carolina. I think we're going to get to this point in the year. You're going to see, playoff aspirations fall short again. They're going to have their 5th loss. Now you have to kind of hit the road. This isn't a spot that Carolina is going to be like super amped up to play. And for Arkansas, first year for Silverfield, they're going to be kind of battling for any degree of conference win. So at home, they're always going to be up for these games. I have the Hogs beating Carolina in Fayetteville just because they're going to want it more in this spot. And then week 12, Carolina comes home. They get Georgia. This could be a turnaround big-time win spot. I think you're going to get the opposite of that, where it's kind of just like, all right, we get Clemson next week. Let's focus on our in-state rival. We're outmatched against the Bulldogs. Let's just go out there and play a game of football, right? And because of that, I got Georgia beating Carolina to go to 4-7 at this point through 12 weeks. But then week 13, Carolina goes to Clemson. This rivalry in the past few years, it's really just been the road teams going back and forth trading wins. I have that trend continuing because I think you can be Lenoris at this point, probably his last college game. Maybe a similar thing for Dylan Stewart. They're going to want to go out with a bang. Those guys are good competitors. So, especially against your rival on the road, you get to go do it in their stadium. I think Carolina's able to go get that done. So, either going 5-7 this year. 5-7 for Beamer this year, that's not that's not the expectation. It's not good enough. Do I think they move on from him? I don't know, because if you want to move on from a coach, we've seen that trend recently where you kind of want to do it in the middle of the season. But I'd be surprised if in the middle of the season, especially if they're like 3-3 going into the bye, you don't fire him there. And you don't fire him after week 8 if you beat Tennessee. So I'd be surprised if we see Carolina move on from Shane Beamer this year, even if it is 5-7, just because you don't really want to do it late in the year, especially if some other jobs have opened up. And in the middle of the year, I doubt they have cause. So even though it'll be an underwhelming year for the Gamecocks, I had them sticking with Shane Beamer, which I don't even think is a bad move. I just think he needs to, really kind of reassess how he wants to build the roster, because right now you have those 3 big guys in Lenore Sellers, Nick Harbor, and Dylan Stewart. That's great. They're taking up a ton of money. And can they build around them, give them more depth where those who don't need to all be on at the same time? I think they did a better job of that this year, which is why I have them adding to that win total and being competitive in some of these games. But this schedule is just hard. There really isn't a break in the conference slate where Carolina can pick up 2 or 3 good ones at home. It's a bunch of on again, off again on the road, back at home. It's going to be a tough year for the Gamecocks, but you'll see, it'll be fun to watch. We know how good Lenoris is. We know how good some of those playmakers are, so I'm going to have them on my TV every single weekend. But I'm not sure how many games, realistically, they can stack in terms of having a very great season in the win-loss, maybe making a postseason push. So that'll do it for the South Carolina schedule prediction and season preview. If you have been enjoying all this college football content and you want daily SEC stuff leading up to the season, subscribe to me here and follow me on Twitter. I'm pushing stuff every single day until we kick off in August. So thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Tailgate Talk SEC. I've been Will Thomas, and I will see you next time.